Hello and welcome to Curious Conversations. We are your hosts, Carly and Mandy, and today we're talking about the death care industry and preferred methods of end-of-life care. But before we get started, we want you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss an episode. Subscribe makes you eligible for our giveaways, and it is the only way to see our live chats. Mandy, hi. You know what? Death is scary for a lot of people,
Hmm.
and we're going to talk about it today. I get way more worked up about what's going to happen after death. What happens after I'm gone? Do you ever feel that way?
Yeah, it's weird to think about. I can get worked up about the whole thing. You know, I do not
Right.
like the idea of talking or thinking much about my own death, I mean, much less like your loved ones, but I'm ready for today's conversation. But I will say that those kind of things are hard decisions for me because I guess I think I'm going to live forever. That's mature,
Uh-huh.
right? That's a mature thought. Um, I do think I know what the kind of things you would like, though. So I've got some clarity there. If that helps anything, if I'm needed.
I love it. Okay. All right. Well, there's a lot of appealing options out there. Some more appealing than others.
Mhm.
I will say I saw something recently. It's called the mushroom death suit. Have you heard of this?
No, that sounds like your thing, though. But I don't know. What is this?
Okay. So this suit was created by J. Rhyme Lee. So there's like 219 chemicals in the body, and those have to break down. They break down in the soil, obviously. Um, well, mushrooms are like master decomposers. They cleanse soil of toxins. So it turns out, I mean, it sounds good in theory. There's a suit. It is infused with mushroom spores. You've got it on you, you're buried, and then they're gonna create mushrooms. They're gonna come to life. They're gonna help break down your body. Sounds so good. Um,
Sure.
didn't work,
Oh,
unfortunately. Um, there's like a very specific environment required for fungi to thrive. Um, and the suit really isn't actually necessary in the right environment. So microbial activity stops at like 3 feet. So if you're 6 feet down there, they're not going to grow. They're not able to grow, so they're not going to work. Unfortunately, this suit was tested on Luke Perry, and they
mm.
they watched him. You can kind of follow his daughter's journey in that. They watched with they put PVC pipe and cameras underground to see how this would work, and it didn't. It didn't work. So
Mm.
that was very unfortunate. And I'm a
Okay,
Luke Perry
wait. They watched him like that. The hope was to watch the guy decompose.
to watch
Really?
these
Like,
mushrooms happen.
how do you do that with somebody you care about? I don't know.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't
what?
know if his family was checking the footage. I don't know about
Okay.
that. But
Yeah.
the creator of the suit.
Okay. Okay. See, I got a little off there. I was like, okay, I'm really not as desensitized as the rest of the world. I'm just really not. I'm like, all right, let's check it on brother kind of thing. I can't do that. But no, the person, sure, that makes sense. And I did not know that about him. That is interesting. But
It
yeah.
is. It's very interesting. And I was all about the mushroom suit, but that's just probably not going to work out. Now I did look at, I'm on a boat, so I looked at sea burial. I don't know if you've ever looked into that.
Mhm.
It's basically, I mean, you're in a box. You can be cremated, but you can have just your body, your carcass is in a box, chunked over. The box is biodegradable or whatnot, so it's not bad for the environment or the waters. And then your body is down there in the bottom of the ocean. That is terrifying to me. But I do kind of have a funny story. from that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, you know I like bones and skulls and
Hmm.
I like all of those things. I like to collect them. Well, I found a deer, a whole deer,
Mm.
close by
It's a
in the
lot of
woods where
work.
I live. Drug it home. It was
Okay.
pretty gross, but I thought, oh, I'm on a boat, so I can tie that bad boy up to the back, and lower it into the water, and the fish will eat all of the gross things off of it, and then I'll have this nice, awesome, skeleton that I can pull up and pose somewhere. I don't know. I forgot about it, and we took the boat out.
How do you forget about a whole deer carcass?
I did. I forgot about it. So we have the boat out and it's so much fun and we have to get fuel. So we pull up to a fuel dock and you've got
Oh,
dock workers and we have a skeleton. We're dragging by a rope on the back. It literally looks like we got tired of our dog and put our dog back there.
oh my God. How do I
It's
not know
so
this
awful.
story?
Embarrassing.
Yeah, I feel like I should have heard this before now. This is a mess. Yeah. So, what's the lesson learned?
Don't tie your carcasses to the back of the boat.
That's it. Where might that be now?
I got rid of it.
Hmm.
In the journey, it tore it apart. I lost
All
some
right.
pieces.
All right. That's the messy details of the bone collector. Is that right? Yeah. I used to do that on the side of the road. There was a place in Atlanta where they would buy these things back in the 90s. And they had little skulls. And this was before it was a whole thing, um, little skulls and bones and stuff. And so back when I was really dodging work,
Yes.
me and my me and my friend would go collect things, and we had these hopes, that we were going to really make it by selling these. I don't know. I think it was like maybe to get some fast food money, probably that kind of thing. Um, but I remember thinking I would get a vulture, and
Oh,
the closer you get, like I'm walking the road and I see it ahead, and it's huge. Like it's huge when you get up close. I got like a little Walmart bag. I think I'm ready. It's not like that. No, it's not. And we used to spot things and think we would go back. And then, they would be gone. There was like a whole wild pig one time, but then it was gone. And so, yeah, that's how I spent my early adult years, not growing up. This is full disclosure day, right? We're just talking about the skeletons in our closet, like no joke.
yeah, no
Yeah.
pun intended. Well, I am grown and I'm still walking around with my Walmart bag, picking up bird skulls and
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, I expect to see something in the background in the future. Like I'm looking
yeah.
for that little thing sitting up there.
Another show and tell. We'll have a show and tell episode.
A show and tell. You know how I love that. Um, yeah, but the mushroom thing, I could see that you would be into that.
Mhm.
You've got this whole mushroom deal.
Yeah,
You've got a
I love
whole
them.
mushroom fetish or something. And people have different ideas. I remember my great grandmother said she just wanted to be leaned up against a tree in the woods. Just lean me against a tree. We
Yep.
didn't do that, by the way. We did not do that.
Yeah, I've heard people say, "Oh, just throw me in a." In the backyard,
Mhm.
You hear those sayings.
Yeah, yeah. She just liked the
Well,
whole earthiness, the wilderness, and it sounds
yes.
good in theory, but you're not really going to put your grandma in the woods. I mean, there's the idea of what you say and then the reality when the mushrooms don't hit right, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Well, today we're talking about cremation gone wrong. And I feel I do need to kick us off with a disclaimer.
Now we're
Because
doing the
in prepping,
disclaimer.
yeah, we have a
Now, just
disclaimer.
now.
Yeah, we're we're in it, but yeah, in prepping for this episode, I found myself making a grave mistake with the
All right, tell
puns
me.
all day. Um, when I say crematory. Sometimes it comes out creamery.
You do know that's different.
Eh, At no point in this episode will I ever be discussing ice cream. So if I say creamery, just ignore me and know it was meant to be crematory.
Okay, well, I will laugh, and that'll be the giveaway. Okay, well, we kind of knew this was an episode like this was coming. We've talked about so many things in this, I guess, genre. You remember when we went to the cemetery, like the old cemetery, and we took all those photos?
Yes.
Yeah, we need a cemetery episode. We talked about that day, and we haven't
Yep.
done that yet. So I think this is going to I think this is going to kick things off. And everybody can kind of see some of those on our TikTok page. Just go check
Yeah.
out those. Yeah, because we got some pretty good images of some interesting things out there. You know that one grave, remember it was like a whole ritualistic thing and that you were out down beside looking at. I love the old cemeteries because there's some strange things out there.
There are, and we found some, I mean, it was just I don't even know. I want to say like cave-like tombs, that you felt like you could just like put your hand in. And then we found the relative of Michelle Obama out
Yes,
there.
how random was that? With
It's
the
very
big
random.
old monument. And you're like,
Yep.
what is this doing out here in this country older than the hills cemetery? And then it's a
Yeah.
whole big thing about Michelle Obama's relative in the middle of nowhere. I mean, this is a tiny town near us, and
Yeah.
that was very, very surprising to me.
It was, but how cool is that? I
Yeah,
don't know. It was just fun. The whole thing was fun. We've got to do an episode. Absolutely.
yeah, we have some very interesting cemeteries around here.
Yeah, we
It's
do.
on my list to do a cemetery tour. Maybe we'll kick those off together with my other
Ooh.
side project and do like a little thing.
Oh, I love it. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we have kind of dug into a little bit just American funeral practices. And it's hit or miss. They use some pretty toxic carcinogenic formaldehyde embalming fluids. They're extremely expensive. And I think that it is, death is expensive, period. You're trying to dispose of an entire person. And so I do understand that. But I do feel like sometimes we might have a markup on something that, you just don't feel like you have a big choice in the matter. Um, Today we're talking about embalming. I'm sorry. No, we're not. We're talking about cremation.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of
It's
both.
a little bit of everything. Okay. Well, as far as the embalming fluid goes, I hate the idea of embalming. I really do. I didn't think about it in the past. You just not think you don't want to think of those details when you're there with a loved one. But I don't like that. I don't like that.
Yeah.
It's bothersome to me. But you and I had a chance to speak with a prominent funeral director in North Georgia. He's been in the
Yep.
family business, for so long, just decades, and he grew up with that, learning from his dad. And so he assured us that the process is not nearly as gruesome, as it seems. And in fact, it's just like recycling with the blood, and there's just simple additives. I remember him saying it so casually, like lanolin. And
Yeah.
he made it sound like this soothing, easy process of taking care of somebody. And I thought that was interesting. Of course, he's normalized it for his lifetime, and it was made that way for him too. So we're all spectators. I'm sure it's different if you're directly involved.
You know what, though? He is in the right business
Mm-hmm.
because, I mean, especially the process of embalming, if you watch, on television shows that are not the real thing, it looks really invasive and terrifying. And he just made it seem like, no, don't listen to all of that. It almost felt like a after death spa day, the way he laid it out.
Right.
You just felt better. It was like, oh,
Soothing.
okay, I'm good with taking Meemaw there now.
Yeah, and that's the point, right? You need to feel confident about that. And
Yeah,
we like think of everything nowadays. Like people want to know every little detail, and I don't know that we're supposed to. We're supposed to just kind of accept some things because we don't have to like have our hands on every little thing. But nowadays, how do you stop that? Once we have that
right.
going, how do you not search for the information?
Yeah, it's all right there. It's at your fingertips. So
Yeah.
why not? Well, I recently caught parts of a docu-series, and it was talking about a funeral home that was called Return to Nature Funeral Home. And it was started by Carrie and John Halford. This was in 2017. And they had a desire to start a green funeral home, which I love the idea of. They don't embalm. It relies mostly on cremation and then some natural burial, which I think is phenomenal. Um, and then they were even working on something called water cremation. So have you heard of this?
No, that kind of sounds like a, contradiction in terms, but I'm not heard of this type of cremation. What in the world is that?
Okay. Yeah, it does. Sounds like you're going in two different directions.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, there is water cremation that is obviously it's water. So it's, your body is placed in a like a pressurized vessel. And there's a
Like a pressure
solution.
cooker?
Y- a little bit.
Big pressure cooker. Okay.
A big pressure
Huh.
cooker. There's a solution that's water and alkali, and you're in there. There's hot and cold. Right now, it's not really widely accepted. I think it's in a handful of states in the United States. Um, there's some question about it, but it's heated. The water is heated in the warm one, and the tank is so pressurized that it doesn't boil. You're not in boiling water. But the heat and the alkali work together to break down the organic tissues, and it leaves behind bone. And then liquid. So basically, it is speeding up the decomposition process so quickly that it's done in 2 hours.
What?
2 hours. So you're dissolved in that water, and your bones are left there. And then your bones are crushed, and those are given back to the family. And that water, here's the kicker, is safe to just return back to, yeah. That's disturbing. That disturbs me on so many levels.
Okay. Um, it just goes to what, the sewage system or like
Hmm.
the sewer, or what are you gonna do with this water? Flush it down the You're just gonna
Yeah.
flush it.
So I mean, you
Oh,
think when they're doing embalming and body prep, there's a water involved in that. It just goes into the system, like just all in there. So, yeah.
okay. As much as I said I was like with you on little bones and skulls and all of these kind of things, I do have a line, and I don't want to part out the Mandy. Okay, I don't want to do that. You're not getting like a femur. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Nobody's getting like the juice.
Right.
Nobody's getting the old mop water. It's gonna.
So, flush it.
I don't want to separate. I came together and I want to leave together. That's
Right.
me. That's me.
Like it. Yep.
Uh, yeah, I don't want any of this. I mean, the whole thing is just, it can be so morbid and weird. And I think that's why people either are disturbed by it or they do want to normalize it because who wants to think about it? Who wants to get sensitive about all this stuff? Because it is so out of your hands and we all know it is. You have to be very specific with what you want done, or the people behind are going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just some of the things that I've seen all my life, and you just kind of take for granted, as this is traditional. This is what it is, especially here in the South, in my opinion. But if you take a step back and think about it, I saw somebody on Facebook recently and said, it was like dressing up a corpse and putting
Mm.
makeup on it on a corpse. Now that sounds like serial killer stuff, and yet that's the truth about traditional, funerals in the South. They're gonna fix up Aunt Susie, and you hope she looks good, right? You
Yeah, I
hope she
do
looks.
think yeah, it takes a special person to work in the funeral industry. And I say the same about EMTs. You have to be able to handle certain things. I could not work an ambulance. There's just no way. I don't know. The stress of it would be too much. But
Yeah.
in the funeral home industry, I'm not really bothered by those types of things. But not everyone is that way.
Yeah, I think everybody has a threshold. You hope there's something there that somebody's like, yeah, but that's a little too far. I know, like when we were when we were looking at some of the booths at the Curiosity and Oddities Expo, or was it Oddities and Curiosities? It's Curiosity and Oddities. Yes,
Oddities and Curiosities Expo.
Curiosity and Oddities. Okay,
One of
neither
those.
one sounds right now. Like neither sounds right, but this is a thing. But when that came to Atlanta and we went, it was like, your head's spinning at all the things, and these people are getting creative. So check out our photo section on our Facebook page, for our visit there, because we couldn't get enough images, and I'm sure we could have added more, but there's a lot of stuff there, and it makes me think we need a memorial episode, because that's different. That's a branch out from this.
Ooh.
And there was a lot of stuff I'll save for that, because I could start talking about those booths.
Yeah, that was fun. I
It
mean,
was
if you've
fun.
not been to one of those, if you're into the whole oddities thing, absolutely
Mhm.
find one and head it up
Mhm.
because it was, I had a great time. There were some things that were like, oh,
Hmm.
why, why?
Yeah.
But for the most part, they had some really cool things that you could like, and it makes you think about things in a different way. So I would
Yes.
say
And
go.
that's yeah.
Back to Return to Nature Funeral Home. It seemed to all be going really well. This couple, they were very liked by the community. People found them to be compassionate
Mhm.
and helpful throughout the process of handling the remains of their loved ones. People were like they were cheerleaders for this couple.
Mhm.
And then it all went south because some neighbors began to notice an odor coming from the building. Of course. EPA was called in and they discovered the remains of more than 190 people that were supposed to have been cremated.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah.
a lot of people. And I was thinking, now this sounds good, a nature funeral home, like how it was originally. We didn't have to do all this stuff. You just, bury the person deep enough, you do the right things. I thought that's what this was going to be, with something, you know, safe, and no, huh?
No.
Okay. Well, gosh, I don't know what to say about that, but why did they, like, what happened? Why did it go south? No pun intended.
Yeah. Gosh, we are so full of puns today.
I know. What is this? This is either really cute or lame. Like,
Yeah.
shut up, people.
Uh, well, I will say, I don't know. The building looked like a horror film, the scene from a horror movie. Bodies stacked in the corners of the rooms. There were bodies piled into containers in closets. Um, and they're decomposing just on top of one another. It was like they ran out of room and they gave up on providing any form of dignity and just thought, well, we'll hide things and shut the doors. And if that's not horrific enough, victims' families discovered that they had been carrying around urns and you can do the little pendants with ashes, but they were full of concrete dust.
Oh my
That
gosh.
that's upsetting to me.
So when you're first saying this, I'm picturing like, was it Bluebeard, like the fairy tale, and don't look in the closet, you know, and there's just bodies like stacked here and there. How does that not, like, what kind of person is not bothered by that on some creep level, or let's just say some gross level, or what in the world? And then it's just super sad to think that people have their people with them the way they plan to. This is what I'm talking about. You don't really know what's going to happen to you. You just hope for the best.
Yep,
Uh, I'm not
that's
familiar with this
exactly
particular
right.
story. Yeah, I don't know this particular story, but like I said, it's sad and it's scary. And here's another thing: did you ever see the movie Phantasm? Like this, is an
Yep.
old, like late '70s, early '80s. Just a creepy horror movie that bothered me as a kid, but it's really effective. But it all takes place at like a mausoleum. So
Oh,
something's happening to the bodies, and that's the point of the movie is like what is happening. And it's, I promise you, you won't guess what it is. You just won't while you're watching it. You won't guess what it is. And so, who knows what's going to happen? But um, what? So what was the deal here? What's the problem with these people?
yeah, it was all about money. They were misspending funds that were supposed to be spent on the services that they promised to provide. And not just the funds from the victims' families, but they were also awarded several like lump sums throughout the COVID pandemic, like business relief funds. And they just spent that frivolously. Vacations, they just went and spent their money on other things. They made that choice while they have bodies piled up. That's just heartless to me.
It is heartless and weird. It's like hoarding gone horribly bad.
Terribly wrong.
Um, Yeah, well, I will say COVID made everything whack. There was too many rules added and too many taken away, and everything was in an uproar. It went a little nutty. I have to ask you though, do you carry anyone's ashes? How do you feel about cremation, this kind of thing? It's really popular now.
Yeah, I don't have any ashes. I had one uncle that was cremated, and his son does have ashes in a necklace.
Mhm.
Um, okay, cremation for me is tough. I have like two main fears in life. One is drowning and one is being burned alive. And for
Mhm.
some reason, my brain can't get past the fact that cremation is burning a
Mhm.
body. It just
Yeah.
creeps me out. I don't know.
Okay, I know, but I think we're in the minority these days because it has gotten really popular. And when I was a
Mhm.
kid, that would have been something like really out there to be cremated. You just didn't hear about that in this area, excuse me, especially. And um, I don't know a lot of people who've been cremated. My stepmother was cremated, and my stepbrother has her ashes.
Mm.
Um, and I think that some people have some sort of comfort, with that they've got something, they can hold on to something. I don't want that responsibility. Can I tell you
Yeah.
that? And I don't want that reminder. I do go to the cemetery for like my dad and loved ones, but I don't want that on the mantle. That's just me. I don't want that.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. And then, I just thought, oh, it's ashes. So you're just getting some, it's like picking up a pile of dust that is incorrect.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot to it. It's heavy. It's a lot to lug around. Once you throw it in an urn,
Yeah.
you've got a weight to carry.
Well, it is. It is. And you have to specify that you want those specific, to be alone. That person's
Mhm.
ashes all their own. You don't want some community thing. Um, and I guess I'm like you. I know that I'm gone. I'm not an idiot, but yet my brain is like, I don't want that. Like I
Yeah.
don't want that.
Don't burn me.
Yeah, yeah. Can you just not do that? I know that some people would, think that it's good and it's normal and it's cheap, so that's the way to go. People are trying to get practical because funerals are expensive.
Yeah.
They really are. So like the average burial around Georgia, we are, um, It's about 7 to 12,000, but cremations you can get usually are under 2,000.
Hmm.
So I think people are just like, I don't want to waste the money on that, and we've lost that tradition for the most part of this. When I was a kid, you went to like the first night you went and you saw, paid your respects and all, and you walked around and did the thing, and the next day was the funeral, or the next, within a couple of days you had the funeral, and that was for more in a more intimate setting, closer relatives. And I don't know. I kind of like that tradition in a way because I grew up with it, but um, I know a lot of people are just saying, I just want the cheapest thing. I want to save my money for my family, and um, anyway. But with this type of story that you're talking about, there's um, there's the emotional end to it, but then there's just the fact that this was a great big fake, right? They were totally taken. It's a scam. It's like the worst scam.
Yeah. But I mean, it's
Ugh.
terrible. You think that you're carrying your loved one because they've been cared for, and and I do believe that there's a respect for a body after death, just as if that person was in there. You've got to handle that a certain way. And they weren't, to know you're carrying around concrete. And there was a lot that was put into making concrete dust. You had to make concrete and crush it up. It wasn't just out straight out of the bag. They did it a certain way. I feel like that's so much trouble. Why not just do what you're supposed to do? I don't know. Um, but I just feel really sad for the family members
Yeah.
and what they would have gone through figuring out, where is my loved one? And after, a body is decomposed, you can't cremate it. So now they don't even have their loved ones anymore. Just very sad. There's a respect there. I went with a friend one time. She did something called, you may have heard of this. You're talking about, the when you go to view and spend time with family, and then you have the funeral and the graveside. She did something every year called Decoration Day. Have you heard of that?
I don't think so. I don't know where you're going with this, but is this like the deer carcass? I don't know where we're going.
No.
Morbid or okay.
They had a family area in a cemetery, and their family would get together every year. It was strange for me, but it ended up just being beautiful, and I had a great time. Uh, your family all comes together. You do a picnic at the cemetery,
Oh,
and then you clean up the graves and put new flowers on them, and it was a time of like sharing stories. It was just amazing. I had the best time, and I'm not even a member of the family, but I felt part of the family because you're getting to care for the graves of those loved ones and hear those stories. That was so cool.
yes, I have. I didn't know where we've talked about a lot of things. I didn't know if you were going somewhere morbid or not. I didn't know what might happen, but I have heard of this. Did not know what it was called, and it's an old thing. I know at our church we have had like cleanup days, and the men would do the like the physical labor, and the women would like scrub and wash the tombstones. It's a really
Yeah.
old tradition, but I think it's kind of nice, and I like the idea of you know that memory. And I mean, some people don't even go to cemeteries and take flowers or anything. I do that kind of thing, but not to the degree that I probably could. But I like the idea of honoring and taking time to remember somebody and sharing. It's a lot better than just mourning over someone indefinitely. It's a nice way to I don't know. Just I think that would be good. I've never been to that kind of thing before though.
Mhm.
It's
It was
interesting.
cool. It was really cool. Well, I have another story that I want to talk about that you know about this one. We've mentioned it a little bit. And that's the Tri-State Crematory in Lafayette, Georgia.
Yeah, I knew when we were planning this episode this would have to come up. Oh my gosh, this stuck with me. I remember I was just like in shock. And there's these things that happen sometimes, especially they happen in your area, and you're just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." And It's just like the most awful gossip ever, but then it's somebody's life. It's somebody's life, and that it's a loved one that's dealing with this on a different level than just like gawking and how could this be? And I remember I just, when this went down, I almost wanted to go out there and see what in the world, because it just blew my mind. And we didn't even have the podcast in mind at the time, but this was like the poster child for podcast. Totally shook our area.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yes. And it was just being so close to home.
Yes.
Yep, weird. So this crematory was founded by Tommy Marsh, and this was back in the 70s. Tommy was a hard worker, very liked by the community. He seemed to really enjoy serving his community members. And so he did that in that capacity, and it was really beautiful. Well, around 96, his health got the best of him, and his son Ray took over the business. Fast forward to 2022, a propane delivery truck driver. He was delivering to the property and saw bodies. And
Could
so,
you imagine?
yeah, nope, nope. Well, he called the authorities. Walker County Sheriff went to the property, but they didn't see anything unusual. Um, Shortly after, an anonymous tip got called into the EPA that there was something amiss going on out there. EPA officers searched the property and they found a skull and they found some bones and discovered they were human remains. Eventually, those went missing. They're nowhere right now. Um, they were hidden. But on February the 15th, those officers returned to the property with a search warrant, and they were met by a very disturbing scene inside.
Oh my gosh. Um, this sounded like when this happened, I remember it was like, I don't know, this sounds so tacky, but there was that movie House of a Thousand Corpses, and this is like the House of a Thousand Corpses. It was just insane. Like you kept hearing more and more and more. And you kind of wanted to investigate this because you just could not believe it, and you wanted to know what the heck was going on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, between 96 and 2002, um, there were like more than 2,000 bodies that had been sent to tri-state. And it was later discovered that 339 of those bodies went uncremated. They could not be accounted for. The families had been given that dang concrete dust.
Again with the concrete?
Yeah, who discovered this and like shared it in some kind of private Reddit chat with with
Right? Like
crematory owners? Like, hey
I'll tell
guys,
you what to do.
yes. And do you know that the family members, to discover if they actually had ashes, which they couldn't actually prove were their loved ones, you can't do DNA testing on ashes. But to find out if they had concrete dust, they were told to take a little portion of it and put it in water to see if it
What?
turned to concrete. Isn't that so sad? Like you're sitting there shaking it up and waiting. That would just be horrific.
Oh my gosh. It's like the opposite of a pregnancy test or something. This stuff's morbid. This is just like you pray to God that you don't ever have to deal with this mess.
Yep, absolutely.
Uh, so that's insane. I have thought of that several times of that place, and like I just want to lay eyes on this place. It was just such a crazy thing. I wish we had some inside intel or whatever to just kind of have an idea. Like, are they good now? Is this place safe? Is it
That's a good
still
question. I
and
don't
is
know
it
even know
still
if it's still
going?
functioning.
I think this is a follow-up episode. I think
Hmm.
so, because this was the thing that rocked our area, and just kind of shook it to God, please don't let this happen to me. And
Yeah.
was that one of my loved ones, and all these kind of things, and you heard the horror stories and then you heard the sad stories. And yeah, I want to know how it stands. We're going to find some people.
Let's find some people. Let's make a trip. I'll go over
Let's do
there.
it. Let's do it. Well, it's really close.
Hmm.
So it's very unforgivable. Talking about all this stuff, I got to say before we go, I have to ask you instead of assuming, when the time comes, what does your funeral look like?
I mean, I have it planned out in my head. Um, Love to be in a box, but not a casket. I mean, a
Hmm.
box that's going to
Yeah,
break down naturally. Um, I don't want to be cremated. I don't want to be embalmed. Just throw me in the box and plant me under a willow tree. I think that would be gorgeous.
I like that. I like that. It sounds good in theory. There's some logistics there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want to do that quickly, in a timely manner. And I know when I talked to my husband about that, he didn't know if he could see me in a cardboard box like FedEx. So, we've got to talk about that. But I will tell you, I do not want an open casket. I don't want people gawking over me and talking about how pretty. Doesn't she look pretty? When no, she does not. No, she does not. That's a weird thing to say. There's all the little, chitter chatter when people don't know what to say, and I don't want my family to see me like that.
Mm.
That's just my thing. But I do have things written down like songs and stuff that I want. So I
Do
guess in a way
you?
I've planned a little bit, teeny bit.
Good for you.
Yeah, and I definitely want to be someone where reputable. Can we just end this with that? A reputable
Yes.
place. Yeah.
Got you.
I'm going to our funeral director that we talked to before. That's my
I
family's funeral person.
Yeah,
So,
he was fantastic.
yeah.
Love it.
Well, listen, thanks for listening, everybody, and for all your support as we celebrate milestones that are only happening because of our faithful listeners. If you want to support our work, you can do so by visiting our Buy Me a Coffee page at buymeacoffee.com/curious conversations.
Yep. And if you love our podcast, be sure to subscribe and share it with a friend. And if you have something curious you'd like to share or an idea for an upcoming episode, send us an email at ourcuriouspodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. See ya.